and welcome to Consulting Ninja. This is part 4 of the series How to Become a Front-End Web Developer. Today we are going to be touching JavaScript. That's the next step in our development journey. So all you need to follow along is a browser. Go to w3schools.com, scroll down to the JavaScript section. I want to thank everyone for being here today. If you're new to the channel, give a like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you want to see the next video. Before I get to the try it yourself, I just want to point out this JavaScript reference. And in here is all kinds of properties and methods of all the different JavaScript objects, all the built-in objects, and the window reference properties and methods. We are going to be using this one here, document. Document is an HTML property. And so let's go take a look at that. But I just wanted to point this out. You're going to want to come play with these and see what's here. So that's available to you. And there are also tons of resources by category on my website, consultingninja.tech. If you guys get stuck with something, you can send me a direct message from my website as well, and I'd be happy to help. So without further ado, let's go take a look at JavaScript. This example that we're looking at here is pretty basic. We have an HTML document, and inside of the document you'll see that there's not even a head tag, and there's no styles associated here. There's no style tags. What we have is a p tag in our body and a button, and then our JavaScript is this. Well, I take that back. Our JavaScript is what's inside of the script. The script tags is what tells our browser what's in between here is JavaScript, and to run that accordingly when it gets to that point. So JavaScript is a way to add functionality and dynamically change things, and by things what I mean is change our HTML, change our styles. We can add elements to the page dynamically. We can remove elements from the page dynamically. Let's take a look at this example though. So we have a p tag, which is just a paragraph, and the text says click the button to change the layout. You'll notice that it has an ID attribute, and the ID attribute is assigned the word demo. And then we have a button, and the button has one attribute, it says on click, and what is there is my function. And the text inside of the button says click me. So I'm going to go ahead and click, and let's see what happens. Whoa! The text got much bigger, and the color got changed to red. And now let's look at what is actually doing that. So what this is a function declaration in JavaScript. And we know that because of this keyword here, function, and then some text. I mean, this is a name. You give this a name. You choose the name. This is whatever name you would like. In this case, the person who wrote this called it my function, and then opening and closing parenthesis, followed by an opening curly bracket, some code, and then a closing curly bracket. So that's how we know that this is a function declaration. So we're saying, I want to create a function, and I want to call it my function, and every time that I run this in my code somewhere else, and we would actually run this function by typing out my function and then opening and closing parenthesis. This is what would actually say run this chunk of code. And a function is a way of creating some steps or some code that you want to run multiple times. Or in this case, the person who gave this example did it this way because otherwise these steps would be ran immediately, since our JavaScript that's in between our script tags always gets run right away. That's just the way it works. So rather than running the code, they wrapped it in this function so that nothing happens until we explicitly run the function ourselves, and they did that by putting it in the click handler of the button, the on-click handler. So that's what this is doing here, this onClick equals my function. So when we click that, it's saying run that function that I declared in my JavaScript. So I hope that makes sense. For those that are new to programming, it might be kind of hard to follow, but this is a pretty straightforward example. If you need further guidance, send me a message, and I'd be happy to get in greater detail with functions and scoping and all that stuff. But we'll just keep it pretty simple and quick for this video. So the next thing is, let's look inside of that function and see what our code is actually doing. So we have another keyword here. This is a JavaScript built-in keyword, let. And what that's doing is telling JavaScript, hey, the next thing I type is going to be the name of a container that I want to store something in. And then we have an equal sign, which means I'm going to assign this container whatever is on the right-hand side. I pointed out in the HTML or in the JavaScript reference page before coming here, in the HTML section there was a document that I said, hey, we're going to use that. Document is a built-in attribute of the HTML document object model, it's called. And document is just it's a reference to the HTML document. And then what we have afterwards is this dot. The dot is called document object notation. If you are unfamiliar with that, I'll put a link in the description for some resources on what document object notation is. But essentially, in JavaScript, pretty much everything is an object, and you access the properties or attributes of an object with dots. So you have the object name, and then dot, and then whatever of that object you want to access. In this case, it's a property called getElementById, which is actually a function. It's a special function, but it's a function nonetheless that takes, you guessed it, an ID. And so we give it this ID of demo, and it searches the document looking at all the IDs. In this case, the document consists of this and this. And so it searches through here looking for any IDs that match demo. And lo and behold, we have right off the bat the paragraph tag with demo. And so that container that we declared, we now have that element that we grabbed using this document.getElementById method, and we're storing it in our container. And then here, now that we have it stored, we can now access the properties of an HTML element, in this case a paragraph tag. And what we're doing in these two steps is we are saying, let's access that element, the p tag, and let's go to the style property of that p tag and access the font size of the style. And let's give that a value of 25. And then the next one is doing the same thing. It's saying, hey, let's access that object, that element object, and let's access the style property. And of the style, let's access the color and give it red. And so that's what's happening here when you click the button. I'm going to click run. That kind of resets this. And then click me again and show you guys that that's what's going on here. So that's pretty cool. Right? We're dynamically changing the CSS of our of this element with JavaScript. I'm going to show you guys another example, and this is another way of doing something really similar, which is adding on-click functionality. So I'm going to get rid of this button, and at the same time I'm going to show you another way to create a button. So I'm going to create an input tag type of button and a value, and this is going to be the text that's displayed on the button. We'll call this button 1, and then an ID. And we don't ever want to have any spaces in our names, so I'm gonna use, this is called camel casing. It's having your capital letter of the word be the second word in, not the first. It's called camel case. It's something I'm familiar with. And let's change this to selected. We'll change the ID of that paragraph tag to selected. Something that we frequently do in industry is display something depending on what a user clicks. And I'm going to get rid of the function declaration since I don't need this to be prevented from being ran right away. I am going to do what's called add an event listener. So I'm going to again access the document object, which is basically our HTML document, and I'm going to say, well, let's just copy this. Get element by ID. So copy that, paste it, and the element that we want to add a click listener to is the button. And so we're looking at grabbing this ID. So let's just copy that, paste it in here. And then once we have that element, we want to add an event listener. This is a property of an input element. Actually, it's a property of most HTML elements. And the kind of event that we're looking for is a click. Now, there are many others. You could do on mouse over, on mouse out, on mouse down, on keyboard press, on tab. There's a few different ones, but we are going to do a click, and rather than having that function declared and then passing it, declaring it somewhere else, you can declare it right here if you'd like. And so we have opening and closing parenthesis, and then our function that we want, and then the closing parenthesis for this add event listener, and then a semicolon. And then the code that we want to run when that's clicked, that's what this function is the code that we want to run when this click listener is activated by being clicked. And what we want to do is, let's just copy all that and paste it in here. So let's say we want to do all of those same things, and let's change this from demo to selected. Let's say we want to do all of those same things, but we also want to change the text. So let's access the selected element, and that's that's a p tag, and let's say text content, and say you clicked button 1. And now if I run this and refresh, you'll see that stuff kind of changes because we took those other elements out. But we have the button, and the button we created using an input rather than the button. And then we have the p tag. And if I click, you'll see that using our JavaScript, we dynamically changed the font size, the color, and the text content all at once. So let's take this just a step further, and let's say that we had a few buttons. So let's copy and paste that 3 times. Let's change this to button 2, and this to button 3, this to button 3, and we'll copy and paste all this 3 times. 1, 2. So now we have 3, and we want to attach this click listener to button 2, and we'll make this one 30 pixels, and this will be button 3, button 3, and let's make that 35 pixels. And I think I accidentally deleted the color, but we're going to do style.color equals red. We'll add that in there. And then let's say we want this one to be blue, and this one to be yellow. And then we update the code here by hitting the run button. Now we have 3 buttons, and when I click the first one, that click listener on button 1 changes this element to have you clicked button 1, with a font size of 25 and a color of red. If I click button 2, it makes the text say button 2. It gives it the color of blue and a font size of 30. And if I click this one, you guessed it, we are now yellow, 35, and you clicked button 3, and that is horrible on the eyes. Couldn't have picked a worse color, huh? Let's change that to orange. That's a little bit better. So that is a pretty good example of what JavaScript is, and a couple of things that come up that we want to do frequently. Pretty straightforward examples of those. I hope you guys have found this helpful. If any of this doesn't make sense, send me a message. I'd be happy to explain it to you personally in detail. Enjoy the rest of your day. Like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Another video will be coming out soon. We're going to be getting into frameworks quickly here, and that's when the really cool stuff starts to happen. Enjoy the rest of your day.